I'm reading from Luke chapter 19, verses 1 to 8. And I'm reading from the Good News Bible. Jesus and Zacchaeus. Jesus went on into Jericho and was passing through. There was a chief tax collector there named Zacchaeus, who was rich. He was trying to see who Jesus was, but he was a little man, and he could not see Jesus because of the crowd. So he ran ahead of the crowd and climbed a sycamore tree to see Jesus, who was going to be passing that way. When Jesus came to that place, he looked up and said to Zacchaeus, "Hurry down, Zacchaeus, because I must stay in your house today." Zacchaeus hurried down and welcomed him with great joy. All the people who saw it started grumbling. "This man has gone as a guest to the home of a sinner." Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, "Listen, sir, I will give half my belongings to the poor, and if I have cheated anyone, I will pay back 4 times as much." Amen.
Hope you're listening to that story, because I might ask some questions about it in a minute. Perhaps I should have warned you first. Can we have the picture up, please, John? Oh, right. Now then, what do we know about this picture? Anybody know what it is? Where it is? Go on then. Yeah, it's a Banksy on the side of Reading Prison, isn't it? So, it's quite a well-known picture, I think, and there's been some controversy about it. But obviously, the link with the picture is that it is Prisons Week, and we're supposed to be thinking and praying about prisoners and those who work with them. Now, just an observation, and you'll see why I say this later. Being locked up, I'm sure, seems like a very long time when you're in there. If you're locked up for a year, it must seem longer than a year if you're not locked up. And education and training, while that's happening, can be helpful, but are not always available due to funding. Now, one of the most famous inhabitants of Reading Jail was Oscar Wilde, right. That might be him, because there's a typewriter and whatnot, so people think that that's who it is. So I thought I would read you one verse of his ballad in Reading Jail, not the whole thing, because it goes on for pages and pages, as I'm sure you know. Here we go. "I know not whether laws be right or whether laws be wrong. All that we know who lie in jail is that the wall is strong, and that each day is like a year whose days are long." Now, Zacchaeus might have ended up in prison if he was overcharging like that in this day and age, mightn't he? So let's remind ourselves of the story. So you've had a bit of time to think it through again, so I'm going to ask you some questions now. What was Zacchaeus' job? Anybody? Right, Zacchaeus was a tax collector. Was he honest or dishonest? Yeah, I don't think he was a very nice person, really, was he? Right, now this is a thinking sort of a question. What do you think he did with all the extra money that he took from people? Let's have some ideas. Have you got your hand up? No? What?
Had parties.
Had what?
Had parties.
Had parties, yeah, might have done, yeah. Any other thoughts? What would you do if you had loads of extra money?
Lived very well.
Lived very well, okay. Yeah, go on then. Yeah, he probably had lots of nice holidays. You can just imagine him on the beach in Barbados or something, can't you? Right, okay. What did Zacchaeus do so that he could see Jesus? Climbed a tree, yeah. And how did the conversation with Jesus change him? For the better or the worse? For the better. Okay, what did he do then? What did he decide he was going to do?
Half his money away.
Yeah.
And anybody he cheated, he pay him back.
4 times.
That's right, yeah. So he's going to give away a load of what he had and pay back all the people that he had cheated. Right, so I just want to tell you really quickly now about a little bit of educational prison work that I was briefly involved in when I lived in London. This was in Belmarsh Prison, if you've probably heard of that, and that was near where we lived, but this happens in prisons up and down the country. And the work was the Sycamore Tree course, which you might have heard of, and you might already be making the link with the story. So the Sycamore Tree course is delivered by church volunteers as part of the prison fellowship. And it's linked in with the Home Office, and it leads to a certificate that prisoners can get and show to employers when they leave prison, and it helps them get a job. And so what they have to do is learn the story of Zacchaeus, and they have a workbook, and in the workbook it's got questions, like the sort of questions that I asked you, and it's got blank pages where they can do artwork or write a little poem or some thoughts or something like that. And then when they get to the end of the workbook, they have to meet a victim of crime and hear what happened to that person and learn what the effects of crime are on people and do some group work, which is very challenging. And then when they've finished all that, there's a big celebration, a big sort of tea party, and people like me, local ministers, maybe the MP, various people like that, get invited in, and we present the certificates as part of this tea party. And it was really wonderful to be involved in something like that and to see people facing up to what they'd done wrong and learning how to change. The concept behind this Sycamore Tree course is what's called restorative justice. So think about the word restore. And if you look in the part of Luke's Gospel where this story comes, you find it's all about people being restored, being changed to be the best that they can be. So, some thoughts about the Zacchaeus story then. Who's in the story? Tell me who the characters are in the story. Who's in the story? Most important person in the story, beginning with a Z.
Zacchaeus.
Right, Zacchaeus. Who else is in the story? Other most important person? Jesus. And who else is in the story? Crowds. Right, so we've got Zacchaeus, we've got Jesus, and we've got the angry crowd. Now, this is a question to go away and think about. If you have to put yourself in the story, would you stand with Zacchaeus, or would you stand with Jesus, or would you stand with the angry crowd? And why would you put yourself in that place? And then another question to take away. Why was the crowd so annoyed when Zacchaeus managed to turn his life around? Shouldn't they have been pleased for him? And then a thought about ourselves. Do you see yourself, oh, it's gone again now, but anyway, do you see yourself escaping? That was very unnerving to look and see a great big picture of me. Do you see yourself climbing away from who you are? Or do you see yourself more like Zacchaeus, facing up to your life as it is and trying to be the best that you can be? And then a final thought, which is about Jesus. Is there anything that you need to say to Jesus, and could you perhaps invite him to sit with you and listen to you today like Zacchaeus did?